Hey guys, Addict Cyclist here with another video kind of giving some initial impressions of the Maxxis Recon Race and the Maxxis Aspens, which I've been using for a little over a year and a half now. So if this is your first time tuning in with the channel, I urge you to hit that like and subscribe button, help support the channel, helps grow the channel. And if you go through the video library, you'll see some high-end mountain bikes, you'll see some high-end road bikes, and yeah, we really appreciate that. So let's kind of dig in here. So I have been running the Aspens and have basically been a huge advocate for these tires. I think they're really great, really good rolling resistance. They actually do, shockingly, even though by looking at them they definitely don't look like there's going to be a lot of meat on them for traction, but believe it or not, there is. But I had a first ride on these Recon Races yesterday that were spec'd on my Scott Spark RC team, and wanted to kind of give a recap on that too. So just note here that the Aspen is in 2.25 and that the Recon Race here is in 2.4 in the wide trail version. So I'm not going to get into specifics of the widths and the rolling resistance. I'm going to put a link in the description of bicycle rolling resistance, comparing these two. And I guess my biggest issue with using a rolling resistance test that's done on a drum indoors is that being outside, the trail conditions vary. There's so many variables. The trail conditions can constantly be changing, even in your same trail system that you ride. You know, obviously, you know, it goes from damp, it can go from wet, it can go from completely dry, it can go to dusty. So I don't really buy into the whole rolling resistance on a drum. These are not road tires. They're not really being ridden on the road, and they all shed dirt differently. They all track dirt differently, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, these tires on that test were literally less than a watt between the difference. There's about a 20-gram difference between these two, which the Aspen is being lighter. Again, I'm comparing them in the same 2.25 size that were done in the comparison. But what I found that I liked about the Recon Race being on my first ride yesterday, and again, I love the Aspens. Nino uses them. Most of the pros actually prefer the Aspens over the Recon Race. Not sure exactly why, but I have a few ideas and I'll share with you. So basically, on Maxxis' site, it shows that the Recon Race is basically a iteration of their Recon tire with the same basically tread design, obviously with shoulder knobs that are smaller and center blocks that are smaller. But the Aspen has traditionally been known as their XC tire since the inception of their XC tires. So it has these nice chevrons, which are actually pretty cool. They're kind of like, they're very pliable, so they offer good traction when you hit some dry rock or dry roots. There's obviously a lot of spacing in here, so there's not a lot of transition knob, right? But on the flip side is that this tire does shed mud pretty well. So I think this is why a lot of the pros use this, is that they've got a more mixed use type of tire versus the Recon Race, which is really deemed as the short track race, dry short track race tire. But great tire. I would like to try this in 2.4 as well for a real good apples to apples comparison. But what I noticed on the Recon Race is that one is the center lugs are actually lower than the chevrons and transition knobs that are in the Aspens. I do like that they have staggered shoulder knobs, so you can lean them a little bit more over. Believe it or not, they are a little bit lower than the Recon Races on the side here, but they are smaller and they are further apart. What I liked about the Recons yesterday was the spacing is very small. They have more transition knobs into the actual shoulder knobs. So as you lean it over, it feels like it actually bites harder. And I felt actually more confident on this tire. Again, dry conditions. Definitely might have to note that. These are not really tires that you'd really want to go out of your way to ride in muddy conditions. Slightly wet or damp, you're still going to be okay. But mud, neither of these tires is really that great. But again, we use our XC tires and we live with it, and we work through it. So again, really enjoying the shoulder knobs on the Recon Race, and I really like the transition, right? I just feel like there's more transition bite as you lean it over, where the Aspen, once in a while, I feel like I do get a little bit of drift, right? Once in a while, not all the time. These are great biting tires, but I feel like I do get some drift on the front and the rear because of the amount of spacing on it that's on here. So I don't know if the spacing actually helps for rolling resistance or not. But again, both tires considered race tires. You can see that profile right there, and you can see this profile right here Again, very, very low, extremely low for a racing tire. The Recon Race is considered a semi-slick. Maxxis isn't calling the Aspen a semi-slick, but I don't know what that is if you want to call it. To me, that's a hell of a semi-slick as well. But again, both great tires. Hard to choose between the two. I'm going to ride the Recon Race a little bit more to get a little bit more time on it. But I did like the initial ride using the same trail system that I ride 90% of the time, 95% of the time. I actually liked the Recon Race in dry conditions than I do the Aspens. So I'll find out. And again, I can't really say it's apples to apples because we're going 2.4 to 2.25, but I just really liked how this tire felt when I started to lean it over because of these transition knobs. So I will report back with a ride impression or additional ride impressions of the Recon Race. But both great tires. You know, I would say probably go with your gut, try one over the other. You're not gonna, you know, lose out by choosing one over the other, but I think that the Recon Race does have a different feel to it in terms of kind of throwing it into the corner. I felt more confident. Again, I expect a little bit of drift out of this, which I do get, but it always does end up biting. But I think that the size of these shoulder knobs, right? You got these L-shaped knobs that are on the Minions and things. Obviously a lot smaller on this bike, but very similar design to the Recon and the larger tires in terms of the shaping of the blocks, right? Where the Aspen is just very traditional, where they're just kind of squared edges. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Again, if this is your first time viewing the channel, I urge you to hit that like and subscribe button, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care. Be well.